Okay, so welcome everyone. Thanks for joining. We are excited to kick off another monthly statewide pantry coordinators call. This month we'll go through our usual updates that we have on nutrition benefits, future benefits, any TFAP updates, and conversation. And then we will also begin what we have as a kind of series of topics for conversation that were based on the results of a pantry coordinator survey that we had sent out to folks on this invite. Based on those results, today we're going to start off with a conversation with a few folks. We'll have a food bank staff person and a food pantry staff person sharing about fresh produce availability and food sourcing. And then we'll certainly open that up, as we know there's a lot of knowledge, experience, and information from all folks, all peers on this call. So open that up for more discussion, successes, challenges, conversation from there, and then have some time at the end for any other topics for discussion to follow. So with that, I will share a few updates from my end, and then turn it over to Jennifer and Jonathan if they have any updates from theirs. So I will start just very quickly sharing the updates that we have for now on public health emergency order. So at this time, there was basically no notification made in mid-August that the public health emergency order would be ending in October. The federal government has said that they would provide 60 days notice of the end of the public health emergency in order to allow for the unwinding of benefits and other things pertaining to the public health emergency to follow. So we are now operating on the assumption that the public health emergency will be extended for another 90-day cycle, and that will take us through mid-January. I believe January 11th is the date that I've been able to identify. That being the case, with that assumption made, that would also extend SNAP or food share benefits through May. I'm sorry. Oh my gosh, no. That will extend benefits through February of 2023, with the last month of the public health emergency being January. So food share emergency allotments would extend 1 month beyond the public health emergency order. We know from a food pantry perspective that that benefit has been supporting a lot of families and maybe easing the strain that may have on pantries and other food distribution organizations. So just trying to keep that date, that moving target date in mind so that we can prepare to serve folks if we see an increase at that time. This month, folks will be receiving their emergency allotments on September 18th. So folks receive their usual SNAP benefits at the beginning of the month based on the second to last digit of their social security number. And then they receive it in a one-time issuance for all the emergency allotments, and that is on Saturday, September 18th. And then there's a final issuance of pandemic EBT that will land on October 29th, so not for a bit yet. So families will receive one more issuance, a second of two for the summer PEBT program. So those are the only things I wanted to share from my end. So Jennifer, I see you there. I'll have to look here to see if Jonathan's made it onto the call, but happy to turn it over to you, Jennifer, for any updates on the TFAP front.
Yeah, hi guys. Jennifer Putzer from DHS here. Sorry I haven't been able to join for the last few meetings. I know Jonathan has been here, I think for most of the meetings. He is not here today because he is in Italy, so good for him. He deserves it. So as far as the food updates go, Jonathan is definitely more the expert on that end of things. But as far as kind of big picture, the Thrifty food plan was an adjustment that was brought to our attention back in June, and that will provide additional funding towards our entitlement foods, which I'm guessing Jonathan might have already brought up since it was a while ago. And then past that, we're just kind of continuing in, and this falls more on my side of things, the administrative portion of TFAP. We do not have any additional information from the USDA to make us aware that there are going to be more funds coming towards TFAP years. So right now we're working with what we call our regular TFAP admin and entitlement dollars for food funds. We're working on the 2023 contracts with all of the EFOs, obviously, and moving forward and keeping our funding consistent with them. And then as far as additional funds that will go into the community, we are working hard on the Region Resiliency Grant, which Feeding Wisconsin is a part of, as well as Hunger Task Force, UW Extension, and WISCAP. So as a team, we're all working to identify those low-income tribal underserved rural areas that we can help to build infrastructure in. So that is a way in which we hope to be distributing more funds out to the local or outlet level. And we are definitely planning on applying for round 2. Have not yet to hear anything about when round 2 is coming out. We just met with the USDA yesterday, and they confirmed that that is the information they have as well. We have no updates on round 2 yet, but I suspect in the next several months we'll have a lot of information about round 2. But we plan to apply for that, those funds, as well as then distribute even hopefully more funds out into the community. Of course, this is a competitive process, so there's no guarantee that Wisconsin will get the second round, but I'm hopeful that plan and use of funds in round 1 will exhibit that we're a good candidate to receive round 2. And that's where hopefully then community members across the state will see more of that funding. As far as the kind of obvious, I think I'm on this call hopefully to answer any questions about the income eligibility guidelines or the changes that we've had to make in TFAP. We did decide, as you all know, to go from the 300% income eligibility down to 200%, and that started September 1st. We did that because of the decrease in food supply. We don't know if we're going to all of a sudden have this great increase of food supply like we have in past years, so we really had to we made a hard decision, basically. But within that, trying to be supportive and flexible and understanding of people's dilemmas on an individual basis. I do ask that if you have situations arise or independent needs at your outlet level, you talk to your EFOs about those issues, and then you can they can contact me. It just helps streamline the process a little bit better. But I am on this call now or whenever Stephanie sees fit to answer questions. So if you do have additional questions about those new forms or additional information you may want about why we decided to make this change, I'm happy to try to answer your questions. Oh, and then great news, we have a TPAP coordinator starting on Monday. So excited. What we call the Food Security Unit, which comprises of CSFP, TFAP, the Farmers Market, WIC, and Senior Program, as well as SNAP Ed. Those are all programs that I'm overseeing right now. We are officially fully staffed starting Monday, and I am thrilled. I hope that will just increase our capacity to serve you guys better. We have been really limited for the last probably year through COVID. It's been challenging, but I'm so looking forward to having some new really great people on board. Carol Johnson will be starting on Monday. She comes from DADCAP. She also has a background with the DNR. So she's got some really wonderful state experience that will really just help her hit the ground running, because the state has a lot of policies and procedures that you have to be up to speed on before you can even dig into the details of program areas. So she won't even have that. She'll be a step ahead of that phase, and she'll be able to jump right into the program activities of TFAP. She has a lot of great experience with food safety and sanitation and developing great community programs in relation to the environment. She's going to be wonderful. So super happy to have her on the team. And we also, although it's a separate component, but still important in relation to our food pantries, we also hired a coordinator who started last Monday for CSFP. And she is also really great, super enthusiastic, outside the box thinker, really wants to, instill some change and progress in the program. So we're really excited about both of those areas. I think that's all I've got, Stephanie.
Thank you, Jennifer. I did drop links into the chat, both for the DHS website with the updated eligibility and income guidelines and the TFAP forms. So you all can find that there. I will put those in the meeting notes for today, and I'll drop a link to where you can find all those meeting notes as well to come. So I would be happy if anyone has questions on anything that Jennifer provided updates on, to focus that right now before we jump into the next topic. I see Katie, you have your hand raised.
Hi, Jennifer. Nice to see you.
Hi, Katie.
Hi. So I just had a quick question about civil rights training for outlets. Is there going to be an updated slide deck for 2023, or are we using old decks?
Nope. I'm sending out the new updated operator's manual by the end of the day tomorrow. So you'll have the updated civil rights PowerPoint slides to present to people.
Wonderful. Thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions for Jennifer? Liz?
Did she put something in the chat?
Oh, is the income eligibility drop statewide or nationwide?
Statewide. Yeah. Everybody's making changes according to what's happening in their states. Some programs I'm just more in touch with our regional partners. I know, for example, Minnesota had an influx of state funds that they were able to keep them a little bit more flush this year coming up, so they don't have the same barriers that we're facing, and it's kind of all over the board outside of them where people are at. There was an agreement probably almost over a year ago that Kitty talked to everybody about what would be the appropriate guidelines to go back to post-pandemic or whatever, whenever we feel like we want to try to get things back to where we were before. And all the states unanimously decided it was going to be a 200% marker. They almost all had been at 200%. So that was sort of an agreement or kind of an acknowledgement that we thought that that was a good percentage to go to.
Liz, if you have another question, you can feel free to unmute yourself. Any other questions from folks? Oh, he is unmuted. Well, we can't hear you. I'm not sure the issue there. I apologize. Any other questions? You can type in the chat, Liz.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Oh, sure. Yeah.
Liz just asked, for those who might be on the phone, could we share the TFAP staffer's name in the chat? It's Carol Johnson. Is that correct, Jennifer?
Yes. Yeah, she does have an email, and I'm putting it in there, but just be kind. She's just starting. Our poor CSFP person started last week, and she said she came into 140 emails, and I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. That's a lot on your first day. People are excited, so that's good.
Let her ease it in. Any other questions? Changes went into effect on September 1st.
Yes.
Correct.
Yep. Yeah, and as concerns and comments, questions have come up, EFOs have been approaching me, to get clarity on things. So I am happy again to discuss individual scenarios with people. I understand that this is not, like every place functions very differently. So.
Liz is asking, what about the annual recertification, which has traditionally been starting October 1st, the federal fiscal year?
That's fine. This is what we're trying to do. The income eligibility guidelines needed to go into effect as of 9/1. That was when they were posted. That's when it was available to you guys. You knew about it ahead of that. I think you should have all received the forms ahead of time because I distributed them to the EFOs. I know it wasn't, significant notice, but it was the best we could do. And then as far as the the annual recertification, 10/1's fine. It was really the income eligibility that we were kind of trying to set up more firm date with. And then everything else we're just reinstating. It's just like the match, right? It's like, just get the process back to where it was. I'm realistic. I understand you can't make things happen overnight. You do your best. Yes. It says, so we started using new guidelines and forms on 9/1. Do we need to have folks who use the new form in September recertify in October? No. Again, we're reasonable. Like I want to do what makes the most sense. What's, like not going to be even more of a burden on you guys and gather information that's not necessary.
Any other questions? Okay. Well, Jennifer, thank you so much for sharing those updates and for being available.
Yeah.
Hopefully with some additional team members, your workload eases up a bit and there's other additional support for folks like those on these calls to have questions answered and such. All right.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna hop off. So have a wonderful Friday, or sorry, Thursday. Wish it were Friday.
Almost there.
Have a great Thursday, guys. I appreciate your time. And again, good luck with all the transitions. And moving forward, Carol will be on the calls and I will be when available.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Yeah, bye.
Bye. All right, so this is, I feel like this is a timely topic with that transition in mind, is the conversation about food sourcing, fresh produce availability, and I think one thing that can be tricky, especially as we hear about the TEFAP foods decreasing, is how do we avoid a scarcity mindset with all of these changes in mind? How do we think creatively, innovatively to make sure that we have access to and find the connections and partnerships to make sure we are not worried about meeting demand and that we're there for folks in our community. So I think actually with these two conversations, this cues up our next conversation very nicely. So based on, again, the Pantry Coordinator survey, the top result of a topic that was of interest to folks was fresh produce availability and food sourcing. So we're lumping those two together for a brief conversation. And I've asked two folks to join us to give kind of an overview from their expertise, their experience on some suggestions they have on some ways of going about food sourcing and produce sourcing, and share some tips and tricks and such. So we'll start with Jeff Jocelyn. I did not ask for a full bio, but Jeff Jocelyn has been in food banking in various roles previous to his current food sourcing director role, and has done food sourcing at Feeding America Eastern Wisconsin, which is the food bank out of Milwaukee and a distribution center out of Little Chute near Appleton that serves the 35 counties in Eastern Wisconsin. And Jeff Jocelyn is now the Chief Operating Officer for Feeding America Eastern Wisconsin. So I will hand the virtual mic over to him, and then I'll introduce our food pantry partner that will be sharing after Jeff does. So thank you so much for joining, Jeff, and appreciate the thoughts that you'll share right now.
Okay, good morning. Can everybody hear me okay? Can I get a nod? Yes, perfect, thank you. Thank you for inviting me today. As Steph said, I've been with Feeding America Eastern Wisconsin for just about 6 years. I have recently stepped into the role of Chief Operating Officer, but before that, I was really focused on sourcing. And I've been sourcing local food in particular for well over a decade now. Before my life here with the food bank, I ran a local farmer to business food hub and sort of a wholesaler program. So I do have some experience in the realm of working with fresh produce. The first thing I'm going to say is going to sound a little hokey, but it's totally accurate. You have to start with a positive mindset, like saying I want to source fresh produce or fresh products. And the reason that I started out this way is that this is a tricky thing to do because of all the factors that we all know, right? It's short shelf life. A lot of things are very delicate. You have to have specialized storage and transportation needs. The logistics are challenging. So if you let all those things kind of get to you, you're already starting from a negative mindset, which does not help in trying to increase more. So we've been able to do a lot of things that are sort of creative or that make us try to do things that are trying to get us to yes. And by that, I mean, anytime an opportunity comes our way, we're looking at how can we leverage all of the resources that we have. And some of those resources aren't just internal resources. Some of them are actually relationships, right? So when I wanted to start working with local farmers at Feeding America Eastern Wisconsin, we have a large territory. We have 35 counties that we serve. And so in order to leverage the opportunities, I asked the farmers, like, if we're going to source product from you, would we be able to have pantries in our territory come and pick up directly from you, rather than having us to send a truck to bring it back to Milwaukee or to Little Chute and then to drive it back up to Vilas County or someplace that's farther away. And so by making those connections with the farmers and seeing if there is an option to do something that's less than traditional, we've had a lot of success with that. And we've been able to really expand the amount of fresh product that we can get throughout our footprint. But as a food bank, we don't necessarily have to touch it. We can get it directly to the partners that we have in the region and facilitate the relationship and the procurement and all of the other background things that go in it. But we don't actually have to touch the product in order to get it to where it needs to go to. I realize that may work for some folks on this call and may work differently for others, but it's that mindset of how can we do something that gets over the barriers that we would normally face when we're trying to source these types of products. And it is definitely situational. So we've tried different things on the fundraising side. Like we absolutely know that the best produce that we're going to get is going to come from farmers that are going to be needing payment for it, and we have to respect that. The profit margins for farmers can be very low. So when we do fundraising, we do it jointly. And we look at our farmers as partners, and we ask them, what does it take for you to be profitable in order to grow an acre of carrots for us or to grow an acre of onions? And then we go out and we use that narrative to develop grant funding opportunities that we've been very successful with, that we've been able to make a compelling case to funders to say, like, we want to do this together. We want to bolster the local food environment and support our farmers, but we need help in order to do that. So again, like, it's where the relationships play a big role in what we do, but it's sort of utilizing what tools we have and what narrative we had, what relationship we have in order to really make something that's much bigger than it would be otherwise. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we can continually trying to say yes to all sorts of products. So when the government products over the last few years were available, we really didn't know how we were going to get to yes on those. But again, starting off with that mindset of how can we move a truckload of produce boxes to a certain community every week for 30 weeks or whatever it is. We started to make calls and try to figure out how to do it. So I guess I'm going to pause for a minute. Like I've tried to give some broad tips and tricks, but again, I think it's really the mindset that goes into it that's going to get you the furthest, get everybody the furthest in their own situation, in their own communities, and in their own situations. So I'll pause for a second to see if there's any questions or comments that I can answer.
Doesn't look like anything immediate, so maybe we'll hand it over to the next presenter, and then we'll open it up for Q&A for both folks to follow.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate it. All right, so I will now again welcome Erin Woldhard from Wafer Food Pantry. Erin's the executive director, and very excited for her to join and share her insights on food sourcing generally and produce as well.
Well, hello. As Stephanie said, I'm Erin Woldhard. I've been with Wafer Food Pantry for the last 10 years and 16 years in the food industry altogether. Really appreciate having the opportunity to talk with everyone today. Just a little background on our organization. We currently provide about 1,600 food packages per month. And we've continued to see that number increase over the last, really since the beginning of the year. Our food sources basically come from 3 different areas. It's donated community product, government commodities, and purchased product. Last year, we distributed more than 1.5 million pounds of food. So one of the things that I feel is really important is diversification of procurement sources. I feel like this is more important now than ever as we continue to deal with the supply chain and access issues created from COVID. And so what does it look like for us for this diversification? Well, we've identified local and warehousing options for our food purchases. Locally, we have a chain grocer, soon to be one more. We also have Aldi's, Walmart, and a Woodman's. We purchase most of our Woodman's when they're able to get the product that we need, which has been getting more difficult in the last couple of years. Our second most utilized source is Aldi, although this source has been pretty much unavailable for the last 2 years. Warehousing seems to be the easiest to find what I need, though I usually have to contact several different options in order to find exactly what I need. We currently have relationships with 4 warehousing companies, and one that I would use if I was in a pinch, but I try not to because their prices are not as good as the other ones that I use. Most of them send inventories every 2 to 3 weeks or when specials come up, and I'm always watching for a good deal. That's key. And if I find a good deal, I'll try to buy what I can, depending on what we have available for space, because in the end, it's going to end up saving me money. When I started here at Wafer Food Pantry, the budget was twice what it is now, because I changed the ordering processes by buying ahead and always looking for the good deal and shopping around. If a need comes up and I haven't seen anything on the inventories recently, I will contact each of my warehouse sources with my specific need and ask them for options. I try to get multiple estimates if possible for the best cost savings to make the most of the money that we have. And I took over food procurement with the changeover of an operations manager about 5 years ago. And in that time, I've come to understand what a good price is on certain items, especially the ones that we purchase most. However, with inflation, my base knowledge isn't much of a help because prices are fluctuating pretty rapidly, which is why I feel like getting several estimates is really important for the purchases. And of course, we rely heavily on our food bank for purchasing, and they are always a great source for getting questions answered. My food bank is always my first stop. So these procurement ideas can be applied to shelf-stable basic procurement, but also to fresh as well. However, I do very little produce purchasing other than what I can get from the food bank. We do retail rescue here, so our drivers are out on routes every day, picking up produce and other goods from our local resources. And thanks to our equipment and the capacity and those relationships, we do purchase very little. Although I have to say that in this year, I have purchased more and received more from our food bank than ever before. So because we do have a great capacity, one area that I like to tap into are the trucking companies, especially those that have fresh produce. If they haul an overage or they have damaged product, it's common for an entire load to get rejected, or sometimes even just a few pallets to be declined by a retailer. Trucking companies usually don't want to return a load to their original source, and I have heard from drivers that they've been instructed to drive out into the country and just dump it. Many of them, they can't consciously do that, and so they instead will find a food pantry or a food bank to donate it to. Make friends with these companies. If you have them in your town and you don't already have a relationship with them, make friends. Provide them with your contact info. And for companies that aren't local to you, when they do make a donation, ask them to remember you in the future. Should they be in your area or have something again, you're a source for them. Oftentimes, once you're in their system, they will call again. And the product varies, nearly any type. Probably most frequent is the produce. But the one thing that's really important to remember is that when they call you and want to make a donation, you do need to talk to them about how the food was stored, the food safety issues, dates, and package size to make sure that you can handle it. Sometimes things come in retail packaging and sometimes don't, and then you need to decide whether it's something that you're going to be able to handle or not. And if you can't handle it, who can you refer them to so that you can get the product into the food pantry or food banking system so that it doesn't go to waste? Another idea is if you can handle a larger donation, share it with people that have a like mission so that you can distribute it widely to avoid spoilage. And Jeff talked about relationships. Definitely that is one thing that I feel is really important. We're fortunate on the produce side to have a wonderful partnership with our local FFA. The students are amazing. This year they provided us with 20 gaylords of corn, which was too much. But as a result, we were able to share with our food bank and other local food outlets that distribute as well. So make new partners, make new relationships, whether it's retail or within your community to encourage food drives with warehouses, farmers markets, and around us we have apple orchards. So we have relationships with them as well so that when they have product at the end of the year or maybe seconds, they know that we're a source for that. Tips, so I have a few tips. For ordering and inventory, again, now more than ever, it's so important to keep track of your inventory. Don't wait until you're down to 1 week of a particular item because it's going to take time to reach out and get information from the sources. Delivery may be delayed. Like I have one that we've waited 3 weeks for, which is way longer than it used to be. And the arrival might be dependent on where it's coming from or what methods the warehouse uses for shipping. Remember, not every source is going to have access to or be able to get what you need. So have a decent buffer. For us, that time frame is about a month. I would prefer to have 3 months on hand, but sometimes our space is limiting for that. The other thing is be flexible. For instance, I was recently having a difficult time procuring cereal. My food bank didn't have any. The warehouses weren't going to have any for a couple weeks. And my only option was to buy local. My least expensive, decent option was about $2 a unit. And you know, when you order from the food bank and you get like a box of cereal for 18 cents, it is so hard to pay $2 a box in the store. So instead of buying cereal, I bought pancake mix. It was less cost. And because we rarely have pancake mix, this was a cost-effective option, but it was also a great treat for our people. Just be sure to communicate with volunteers who stock the shelves that you truly do mean for something that might seem like a different item to be in the section that you have designated it for. Also, don't compromise on food standard values. If possible, buy a more wholesome choice. Avoid sugary cereals, even if the healthier choice costs more. I know food is expensive and it's getting to be so much more every day, but I really feel like it's important that we offer healthy foods, or I feel like the ramifications of poor health are just going to hit further on down the road. I don't spend money on things that I feel have no nutritional value. For instance, juice. And I don't purchase it when we run out unless I find an amazing deal and it's a good option. Or crackers. We typically don't have whole grain crackers or, like a good option like that. And it serves mostly as a filler. So on categories that aren't essential to a good diet, that once the product is gone, it's gone. I would rather spend the money in areas for optimum nutrition. That's what I got.
Oh, thanks so much, Erin. I appreciate it. Jeff, I appreciate it. I was frantically taking notes to include in our notes for those who couldn't be on the call or for those who want to reflect back on the conversation so far. I am interested in opening the floor up to any questions that folks might have for Jeff and Erin. And in the meantime, feel free to type your questions in the chat, or you can unmute yourself. I'll ask one. I know, Jeff, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think something came up also along the lines of sometimes accepting the product is a helpful way to build a relationship. I think this was about produce. I can imagine things like accepting the eggplant or accepting the winter squash when you have winter squash might just be the kind of things you're talking about when, but that builds the relationship, even though it might not be the thing you need at the time. I know Erin had mentioned too, but maybe on the purchasing end, the nutritional values thing, I think there's a lot of conversation happening at food banks about our food policy agenda, how we're sourcing nutritious foods, sourcing the food that folks want, but the relationship does matter. So this doesn't mean we're accepting candy from a convenience store in order to build a relationship, but how should we be weighing, how should folks be weighing the kind of relationship building of now struggling to move eggplant, say, and how we're trying to source the right food for folks who are looking for it.
Right. So part of it is like I started out, we want to try to get to yes as much as we can, but then we also on the back end want to leverage our relationships. So that doesn't mean that if my food bank has an option to take 10 pallets of eggplants, but we know we're only going to move 2, I've got 5 other sister food banks in the state that we can try to work with and see if that might be something that can work for them. We can look at non-traditional distribution methods to try to push something out that might be a little bit more challenging. There's ways that we can really try, and it does take work. Like I'm not going to sugarcoat that, but inevitably, I think when you get the right partners, the right relationships developed, it helps to bolster up things on a long-term scale rather than just relying on what your immediate needs are. So at least in my experience, it's been worth it to go the extra mile and try to push something that may be a little bit more challenging, but that we know ultimately is going to be for the good of the community and good for all the partners at the table.
Appreciate that. We did get a question in the chat. Any advice on sourcing non-standard American diet foods? We've seen a lot of growth in Hispanic American, Southeast Asian American families. and it's been difficult to get culturally relevant foods for these families sourced outside of purchasing from wholesalers. Any thoughts from the both of you or others? I appreciate Jeff and Aaron's expertise on this and know that there's a lot of experts in this room. So I'll start with Jeff and Aaron, and then would certainly love to open this question up for others who have had some success.
So I do have one sort of recent example. So our food bank has been a partner with a company that produces grow machines. So these are indoor machines that you typically would grow like lettuces or herbs, things like that. We developed a relationship with a group of Hmong farmers. Well, actually, they weren't Hmong farmers. They were senior Hmong people in the community who wanted to reconnect with growing food. So they weren't necessarily farmers, but they had been gardeners and grown food in their past, and they wanted to get back to that traditional growing. And so we repurposed our grow machines that we own in our Little Chute area to allow the Hmong partners an opportunity to grow the greens that they wanted. And we had the space, we had the technology and everything to do it, and it allowed them to grow things that they wouldn't ordinarily find otherwise. And again, I know that this is sort of a specialized case, but you can take that principle to, is there someone who's got a plot of land that they can divvy up for different people in the community? Are there other unique ways that you can look at working with local growers to get some of that product into the communities that they serve?
Actually, so we have been providing food for the Hmong population for probably the last 15 years. Initially started as a grant, and the program has just continued. We purchased the product to kind of substitute in for areas that are like just not standard in the Hmong diet or Hmong culture. So we do purchase a special kind of rice, 2 different kinds of rice noodles, bamboo shoots, and fish sauce. And we worked with the local Hmong Cultural Center to determine which items would be most useful in the food package. And so this wasn't just like a willy-nilly decision on what we were going to provide, but we worked with those partners in the community to decide what was best. We purchased from a local store, so we have an Indo-Chinese grocer here. We actually have a couple of them, and we purchased directly from them. Kind of feels win-win. We're providing people with the Hmong culture and the people visiting here with the appropriate foods, and we're also supporting a local business. So that kind of feels win-win to me. We have had an increase in the Hispanic population in our area. And so I went to the Cooley Region Immigrant Task Force, who deals mainly with the Hispanic population, and picked their brains about what we could do better, what we could provide here to offer more culturally appropriate food. So I guess my takeaway is, make a friend in the community who deals with this, with a particular population, the one that whatever it happens to be, and go from there. Our Indo-Chinese grocer gives us a discount from ordering from them. So.
A follow-up question from Jules in the chat. Generally, is it difficult for food banks to procure culturally relevant foods? I'll hand this over, but I think one just general thought on this is when food banks, when food pantries rely on donations, it's often hard to get any specific dietary, culturally meaningful foods into food distribution. So I think it's any kind of specific foods that are needed become more challenging unless maybe there's a targeted ask for community food drives to donate specific products. I wonder if anyone on this call has done something along those lines. and Jeff and Aaron and others open the floor to anyone who has any thoughts on sourcing culturally relevant foods.
On the donation side, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's because you're never 100% sure what it is you're going to be getting in. It's very challenging unless you, I mean, if you have a manufacturer of a specific product within your region, you can develop the relationship with that manufacturer or food producer, and that might get you part of the way. But for the most part, we've had to purchase products that we really wanted to put it that were culturally relevant, and we can do that. Again, it takes time to find the resources, to find the people who have the quantities available to you and the pricing structure that you can live with. But we can certainly do that, and we've had great success with that. But it is a lot of work, and it is a lot of kind of seeking out those specialized products that are a little bit more challenging than just, you know, sort of staples that aren't that are more in the traditional sense what a food bank would distribute.
Any other questions or conversations? Any other successes that folks have had in sourcing produce available in their communities, or other product sourcing tips, tricks? Love to open it up. We have 10 minutes left, so happy to open this topic for conversation up. Also happy if there are other questions, successes, challenges that folks would like to share with the peer group, to allow space for that as well. All right, last call. Well, thanks so much for everyone attending, and thanks to Jeff and Aaron for sharing your insights. I thought it was really great, and I appreciate it. I have recorded this call for folks who couldn't make it, and taken frantic notes to share those out as well. So thank you, everyone. Jeff and Aaron, I don't know if you would mind, could you drop your emails in the chat if there are any direct follow-up questions that folks might have? I'd appreciate it. So I'll let them do that, and just close out to say thanks again. And our next monthly call will be the second Thursday of the month, once again on October 13th at 11 a.m. Same place. So I hope to see you all then. And at that call, we'll be discussing indoor shopping best practices and ordering ahead online pilots, kind of in preparation for cold weather to come in our great state of Wisconsin. If you have any best practices on that and would like to be a highlighted speaker at the front end of our conversation, please reach out to me. I'll drop my email again in the chat. And we'll be working to put together that panel here shortly. So thanks. Have a great month ahead, and look forward to seeing you all next month. Take care.